Hey there, this is Sam Flegal, and I'm going to be talking about the next phase of my painting, Tears Promise. If you've been watching on my previous videos, I showed how I mixed my palette, and I've let that section of the face dry from the first pass, but I'm using the same palette that I used from that painting. I preserved the color while I let the face dry, and that's something very easy to do. Just get some Tupperware, or you can get one of those fancier palette holders, and I just put palette paper in there to keep the color, and then it's got a Tupperware top, so it lets the painting dry even slower, which for oil painting, really, that's all you need to do. It should last quite a while. I've even had palettes last weeks, depending on how much of the alkyd medium I'm mixing in. So to start off, I'm going into the shadow areas. Now you can see just a little bit of my reference peeking through, and at this stage I'm very heavily relying on the reference. I guess this is now the third pass technically, because I lay in the base colors, which I showed, and then I did a pass for opacity, and now I'm doing a pass for detail. I want everything to look great, and if I do this well, this might be my last pass. I'll probably end up doing some glazing and some minor tweaks as well. For those of you watching, this is going to be a little longer video, and it's also going to get pretty in depth if you're watching. So this is a video really for you oil painters out there, or those folks who are just really curious about this process. As I've talked about in my other videos, I'm focusing on cool colors over on the left and warmer colors as we move right, looking at areas of shadow. I want the face to be a secondary element in this piece, but that said, the human eye gravitates towards faces, so it still has to look great. That's where the eye is naturally going to go. They're going to look at faces and hands, and in this case I want people to see Tyr's hand and really focus in on that. So I'm going to surround that area with darks and make sure it's the most saturated, but I still have to make this face look great. So this part can actually be a little stressful because I'm so focused on getting it right. This is a time where I've planned a lot of time to paint. You don't want to do this when you only have an hour or 30 minutes. This video is sped up, but it represents probably about 2 to 3 hours of painting. So take your time and get it right. That's what this phase is about. So I'm trying out little bits of color, and if it doesn't work, I move elsewhere on the palette, mix in a little more warms, mix in a little more cools, and just constantly tweaking. A big part of advancing as a painter is learning to see when it's wrong and to continue to edit those things. Now, I'm using a very limited range in the face. This is because, again, the focus is on the hands. So in order to achieve that, I'm using grays for the darks, and though the warms get warm, they're not the brightest brights or the most saturated warms in the painting. So I'm just pushing, pulling back and forth, trying to sculpt out a face. And at this phase, it is very much like sculpting, just tending to every little detail and trying to get it right. And at this point, there's really not a lot more for me to add in terms of advice to give you as you're working on this type of a painting. Put the right colors in the right place and just be very careful, constantly, moving the paint around and getting it just right, just so. So I'm just going to throw on a little music here and let you guys enjoy watching me work. I just wanted to add here, while I'm working on the beard, you're going to see me come in and start working on the armor, showing the shadow of the beard. And that's really important, that while you're working on the face, you do tackle the surrounding areas as well, helps you see what you're reacting to. You can see I just added in the ear there. And so while I am thinking of things in pieces and I set aside goals for painting and blocking in, you still have to deal with what's around it. It's not just a face floating, it's a face that exists within a painting, and you need to be constantly reacting to the other parts of the painting, the surrounding areas, and kind of working it up as a whole. And you can see I'm really starting to focus on the detail, and I'm even getting in so close that you guys can see the top of my glasses and my nose in the painting, because I'm working on very small areas of the lips and just around the eyes. So I've seen some painters will pull over a magnifying glass and use that, but yeah, just don't be afraid to get in there and go as close as you need to really see the area. This is one of the cases where I should have made the face and the head a little bit bigger, at least in terms of trying to paint. The head's about 2 inches tall, and that can be very difficult paint-wise. It's about, I don't know, I'd say about as small as I like to go when painting a face. And once again, I'm reacting to the area around the head. So in order to sculpt the hairline as it goes back, I'm actually painting in those blues that are behind his head, and you can see I'm going to edit down the thing. So it's kind of like, in a way, painting with white or painting with the negative space, but you can shape things and clean up edges by focusing on what's behind the object. Now here you can see I'm starting to add the detail into the beard, and basically I've gone dark with the beard, and now I'm progressively adding slightly lighter colors. I want them to look a little bit aged, kind of middle-aged, and then I establish those grays, and then I come in with a little lighter gray, and to the point where it's not a pure white, but it looks quite white in comparison to the dark hair that's around it. So it's one of the things about oil painting too, is if you kind of plan as you're moving forward to what's going to sit on the surface of the painting, that's why you want to do those highlights towards the end. And then as I was working on it, kept checking my reference, I realized by working up the hair, it actually brought his forehead line down to small. The hairline kept getting closer and closer to the eyebrows. So even while it's wet, I'm going in and adjusting, bringing up that hairline a little bit more and giving him a little bit more forehead. And that's where that reference gets so key. You can get so into your painting that you kind of forget, what you're looking at. And so I wanted to come back and just fix those things. And that's a lot of what this is about finding those areas that don't seem quite right, figuring out why they're wrong, and then go ahead and making the adjustments. And with just those few last adjustments, that's going to bring us to the end. I hope this was educational and you enjoyed it. I'm Sam Flegal.